Hi, everybody. I've been really looking forward to this one. This is factoring a quadratic with a leading coefficient of 1. If you have not done the Z8 and the Z9, I believe, multiplying binomials, you really need to be able to multiply binomials in your head and get a quadratic out. You need to know the special cases. You need to practice them until you can multiply them in your head immediately. And then you'll be able to factor. So let's get started. I can't wait. This is AA.4. So the question that we're asking now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little background on this. The Babylonians, about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, had a game. It was a math game. And what they would do is they would give two numbers to the person. And the game was like this. They would do a sum and a product. So they would tell the person the sum of two numbers is 5. And the product of two numbers is 6. And the person being asked was supposed to decide what two numbers the Babylonian was thinking of. And this game has been going on for thousands of years, and it's fun. It's kind of interesting. So what two numbers do we add and get 5, and we multiply and get 6? And most people are aware that 2 plus 3 gives us 5, and 2 times 3 gives us 6. Well, guess what? Those are the factors of our trinomial that we see here. You see, this trinomial came from multiplying y plus 2 times y plus 3. And the reason that we like this sum of 5 is because 2y and 3y are our middle terms. And 2y plus 3y gave us our 5y. That's where this came from. Our last pair, 2 times 3, gave us that last plus 6. The y times y gave us the leading coefficient of 1. So that's what we're really doing. We're looking at a sum and a product, and we're taking them apart. So this is going to be y plus 2 and y plus 3. So this time, let's see what we got. This time we have a sum of 24 and a product of 23. Now, one of the best ways of doing this is to look at the factors of this last term. And this is a prime number, which means there's only one way to multiply two numbers together and get a product of 23. And that's 1 times 23. And if you add these numbers, do you get 24? We sure do, don't we? So we're looking at z plus 23 times z plus 1. So now another prime. There's only one way to go, 1 times 7. And sure enough, that adds up to 8, doesn't it? So we're talking about s plus 1 and s plus 7. And our middle term is going to be that 8, isn't it? Now this time 12 has lots of products. We could multiply 1 times 12, just like we did before. We could multiply 2 times 6. We could also multiply 3 times 4. But the thing is, this is our product. We want to have a sum of 8. Well, which one gives us a sum of 8? There it is. The 2 and the 6 gives us a sum of 8. So we're looking at, k plus 2 times k plus 6, aren't we? And that does give us our 8 for our middle term. Now we have 4 as our product, and 2 times 2 gives us 4. But if we add those, we also get 4. But what about 4 times 1? Oh, there it is. 4 plus 1 gives us our sum of 5. Sum product. Of course, it's really important that you're able to factor these numbers. So you need to practice your multiplication table a bit. This time we have an f plus 4. And remember, the order doesn't matter. I could have put f plus 1 times f plus 4 because of the commutative property of multiplication. We knew that. Now we have a 17. Now this one gets a little more complicated because in this one we have to choose the negative and positive. In order to get 17, we had to multiply 1 times 17. That's the good news. There is only one way to get 17, 1 times 17. Now, one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. Well, clearly, if we get a negative 16, that means that we have a negative 17 and a positive 1. And when we multiply them together, we get negative 17, don't we? And when we add them together, we get the negative 16. And that was our sum. So j, oh, forgot the parenthesis, j minus 17 and j plus 1. $21 and 10. There's actually 2 ways to get 21. You probably saw the 3 times 7 right away. But you could have also multiplied 1 times 21. But we want a sum of 10, so we're talking about 3 and 7. I want you to notice something interesting. Both of these are positive, and both of my factors are positive. X plus 3 times x plus 7. And before, we had a negative, and we ended up with one of each. So just something to think about. Pay attention to your signs, and it'll matter. So we're talking about our x plus 3 and our x plus 7. There's our factors. Okay, so we have a product of 8. So 2 times 4 is 8, or 1 times 8. And I'll bet you know which one it is, because we want a sum of 6, don't we? And they're both positive. So we're talking about the 2 and the 4. T plus 2 and t plus 4. And there they are. Now this one is a special case. It's like our other one. There's 2 ways to get 25. We could multiply 5 times 5, and we could multiply 1 times 25. Now, one of the things we want to keep in mind is that because this final sign is negative, it means that the signs are different and the middle is a difference. So instead of a sum, we're really looking at the difference between the values. And of course, we're talking about 24. So it's got to be the 1 and the 25. The sign of the larger must have been positive, because notice that the positive 24 won, didn't it? So that means that that is a positive 25 and a negative 1, which gives us our negative 25. If I had used 5 and negative 5, I would have gotten a 0 in the middle, and I would have gotten that special difference of squares. So this is going to be j plus 25 and our j minus 1, isn't it? Oh, I may have to separate that out a little bit. It may not like it without the space in it. Not sure. But if you separate it out, you're sure to get it right. All right. Now this is another special case. Now notice that I have a positive at the end. That's important. There's only one way to get a positive at the end with a negative in the middle. And I hope you can think about what happened. Well, there's only one way to get 13. I multiply 1 times 13. But there really is another way if you think about it. What about a negative 1 times a negative 13? That does give me a positive 13. And when I add them together, I get my negative 14 in the middle. So we are talking about m minus 1 and an m minus 13. That's going to give me a product of positive 13 and a sum of negative 14. Okay, this time we've got a 3. Now this time it's a negative 3, so I know that one of them's positive, one of them's negative. This is a prime number, so there's only one way to get 3. That's 1 times 3. The sign of the larger has to be positive because the positive 2 won. So that means that it's a positive 3 and a negative 1. So that when I add them together, I get my positive 2, which is my sum. So we're talking about v minus 1 and v plus 3, aren't we? And there you go. All right. 2 is also a prime number. This is a negative 2, though. And we do have a positive 1 in the middle, even though we don't see that 1 there. That really is a positive 1. So we're talking about positive 2 times negative 1. Sorry. Let me fix that. That is going to give us a negative 2. And when we add them, we do get our positive 1, don't we? So we're talking about f plus 2 and f. Notice that I'm putting the spaces in there just to make sure. F minus 1. And that will give us a positive 1 in the middle. Okay, this is a very common error. A lot of people get these backwards because if the negative 6 was at the end and the positive 5 was in the middle, it would be a very different kind of question. There's a positive at the end, though, which means that we either multiplied 1 times 5, or in this particular case, we need a negative in the middle. So we need a negative times a negative to give us that positive 5, don't we? Whenever you get a positive at the end, the middle is a sum, and the signs of the numbers are the same. Same, sum, different, difference. Things to think about. Anyway, the sum is negative 6 if I add these together. So we're talking about h minus 5 and h minus 1. And when we add those together, we get our negative 6. And when we multiply them, we do get our positive 5, right? At that end, negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. All right, now what I do sometimes is I read this backwards. I say, I have a product of 23, and notice that negative, a difference of 22, and the sign of the larger is negative. See what I did there? I read it backwards. I have a product of 23. I have a difference because it has different signs. Sorry, I lost my, it's hard to read that, but anyway, I have a difference because it's a negative at the end and they have different signs of 22, and the larger is negative. There's only one way to get 23, 1 times 23. We want the larger to be negative. And sure enough, they do have a difference of negative 22, and we're all done. That is going to be m plus 1 and m minus 23. And that will give me a negative 22 in the middle, won't it? One of the nice things about primes is that they're really easy to factor. 21, well, we have a product of 21, a difference of 4, and the sign of the larger is negative. Lots of information there. Just read it backwards. A product of 21, 3 times 7, or 1 times 21. But we have a difference of 4. Well, 7 and 3 have a difference of 4. The sign of the larger is negative. So that means it's a negative 7 and a positive 3. There we go. T plus 3 and t, don't forget the space, minus 7. Okay, I'm going to read it backwards. We have a product of 24 and a sum of 11. And of course, they're both positive because they're both positive. 24 has lots of factors. It's 1 times 24, 2 times 12. Notice that if both of these are even, that there's no way I'm going to get an odd number in the middle. Just something to think about. What about 3 times 8 or 4 times 6? There's my 11, isn't it? Notice that I had lots of choices. 3 plus 8 is 11. That's my middle term, and they're both positive. So it's f plus 3 and f plus 8. It's important that you're able to multiply and factor. If you don't know your multiplication tables and you're constantly grabbing your calculator for it, you're going to have a lot of trouble factoring. I'll do a little plug. I highly recommend going to Free Rice. I'm going to give them a little plug here. Free Rice. Please go to that website. Do the basic math if you need it. And if you're having trouble factoring, you probably should do the multiplication table and practice and feed somebody. They won the Nobel Peace Prize this year. So please support Free Rice. And I'm going to read my trinomial backwards. I have a product of 14 and I have a difference of 5, and the sign of the larger is positive. Well, I have a product of 14, and there's 2 ways to get there. 1 times 14 and 2 times 7. I have a difference of 5. Well, that's the 2 and the 7. And the larger is positive. And when I add those together, sure enough, I get my positive 5, which is my sum. So we're talking about x minus 2 and x plus 7. And there we go. Okay, we have a product of 4 and a difference of 3, and the sign of the larger is negative. A product of 4, 1 times 4, or 2 times 2, a difference of 3, and the sign of the larger is negative. That gives me my negative 3 sum. J minus 4. Notice the order doesn't matter, j plus 1. It doesn't matter if you write it either way. It doesn't make any difference. Just make sure that you have the negative with the correct one. Okay. A product of 10, a difference of 9, and the sign of the larger is negative. 10 is my product, 1 times 10, or 2 times 5. I want a difference of 9. I want my larger to be negative. And there they are. T plus 1 and t minus 10. And that does give me a minus 9 in the middle and a negative 10 at the end. Now, this may not be enough practice for you. you definitely want to practice this. I'm going to talk about why you want to learn how to factor, because factoring is so much easier when you go to solve equations. See, you're going to be given quadratic equations that look like this. I just want to put a plug in here for this. See, you're going to be solving equations like these. Now, there are two really good options for solving these. One of them is factoring, and another one is quadratic formula. Another one is the difference of squares. Completing the square. You do not want to do completing the square for a problem like this. You really don't even want to do quadratic formula. You want to be able to factor this, okay? Trust me. You're going to see what I mean when we get to the quadratic equations and we start solving these. But if you can factor them, you can solve them in your head. If you're having trouble with factoring, you're going to have a major issue with this and a whole bunch of other things. So anyway, let's read it. Product of 14, sum of 9, and the larger is negative. Interesting. The signs are the same, aren't they? Remember, this means same sum. And that's what that positive at the end means. Well, to get 14, we have two ways to get there. 1 times 14 and 2 times 7. And we want a sum of 9, and they're both positive. Oh, they're both negative, sorry. Look at that. They're both negative because I have to have the same sign, but I need a negative in the middle, don't I? There we go. D minus 7. Oh, I put a space. I shouldn't do. D minus 2. And we have a negative 9 in the middle and a positive 14 when we multiply them. Okay, 41. That is a prime number. There's only one way to get 41. Oops. Not 14, 41. There we go. 1 times 41. Does that have a sum of 42? Yay! There we go. F plus 41 and F plus 1. Done, done, done. Easy stuff. We like the primes. When you see a prime, smile. 20. Now this one's a little tougher. Well, most people automatically think of 4 times 5, and they think of maybe 20 times 1, but neither one of those is going to give us 12, is it? What about 2 times 10? Ah, there it is. And we have a sum of 12. There it is. F plus 2 and F plus, 10, I said 10. There we go. 12 in the middle, 20 at the end. 40. Something to think about. There's a lot of ways of getting 40, but look, that 39 is really big compared to the 40. So 40 and 1 gives you a difference of 39. Because remember, we want a product of 40 and a difference of 39, and the larger has to be negative. Almost touched the submit, got it wrong. Okay, so 40 could be 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8. But we know that none of these are going to have a difference of 39. We want a difference of 39, so it's 1 and 40. There's our difference of 39. And the sign of the larger is negative, isn't it? So we're talking about G minus 40. And G plus 1. That's going to give us our negative 39 in the middle. And what about this guy? Oh, 43. It's a prime. Negative 43. Actually, we have a product of 43 and a difference of 42, and the sign of the larger is negative. I like to read those backwards. So we're talking about negative 43 and positive 1, and that will give us a sum of negative 42. So we're talking about G minus 43 and G plus 1. And there it is. Negative 42 in the middle, negative 43 at the end. Always good to double check. 36. Lots of ways of getting 36. Let's see. We could take 1 times 36. We could take 6 times 6. We could take 2 times 18. We could take 3 times 12. Do any of those have a sum of 13? Oh my goodness, none of those have a sum of 13. Is there another one that you can think of? Yeah, you found it. 4 times 9. There it is. Like I said, there's a lot of them. And 4 times 9 is the product we want, because we want a product of 36 and a sum of 13, and the largest has to be negative. And of course, they actually both have to be negative. So we're talking about x minus 4 and my x minus 9, which gives me my 36 and my negative 13 in the middle. And looks like we got about 2 or 3 more. Oh, we have a 46, but notice that we have a 47 in the middle. Well, 46 times 1 gives us 46, but we want a negative in the middle, so we both have to be negative to give me a positive 46. And there we go. J minus 1, J minus 46, and that gives me my 47 for the middle. 2 more. 42 with a 41 in the middle. Notice, and hang on guys, sorry. I need to pause for just a minute. All right, we've got a product of 42. I'm going to hit the submit. A difference of 41, and the sign of the larger is positive. So, product of 42, notice that's 7 times 6, or 21 times 2. But notice 41, well, that's really close to 42. Well, 1 times 42 gives me 42, and that does have a difference of 41. The sign of the larger has to be positive, so we're talking about a positive 42 and a negative 1, and sure enough, that's what we're looking for. J plus 42 and a J minus 1. And it's always, you always want to check and make sure that that's actually your factors there. And you can check it. 42J plus negative 1J gives me positive 41J. And sure enough, 42 times negative 1 is negative 42. And we have one last one. I hope you guys will at least get to mastery and maybe even practice a little more. It gets way more complicated when you have a coefficient other than 1 in the beginning. This time we want a product of 26, a sum of 27, and the sign of both happens to be negative. So 26 could be 2 times 13. Of course, 1 times 26 is our better choice because they do have a sum of 27. They're both negative, and there we go. So we're talking about, come on, t minus 1 and t minus 26. And we'll check it. And sure enough, that's the right answer. And I hope you guys will get your mastery. And I will see you on the next section. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.